Introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Council John Wasapiri. I work with the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda as the manager for legal affairs, but also manager for partnerships, advocacy, and East African affairs. And I'm happy to be here to talk about this very critical issue. And I think it touches all of us, because if you're not renting, you have your own residential house, you are probably renting a shop somewhere, and you have a business somewhere. So the law touches all of us, and I think it is a very timely discussion for us.
It is. It is. Before we go into anything, I want to ask you a question where I'm going to need one answer before we break into that answer. This Landlord-Tenant Act of 2022, does it protect the tenant? Does it protect the landlord, or does it protect both?
This law, it's a new law, and of course, first of all, we must thank Parliament for passing such a classic law, because this law seeks to protect the rights of the tenants, but also the rights of the landlord.
So we can say your answer is protecting both.
Yes, it is a balanced law. And for a long time, the landlords and the tenants were actually advocating for such a law due to many abuses that happened, especially in a tenancy relationship between a tenant and a landlord. So it is very timely, and it is good law. But you know, for a law to be said to be good, that law has to be tested in the courts of law. So if you're giving a ruling by Justice Sekana, I think now what we are doing is testing it in the courts of law.
Yes, we are testing it.
And when we test it in the courts of law and we find that there are challenges, we are free to go back to Parliament and say there's a problem, so we need an amendment.
No, right there is where I want us to head now. What are some of the key issues that were brought up in the Landlord-Tenant Act 2023 vis-a-vis to the one that was around before this? Now, first and foremost, the Landlord and Tenant Act 2022 makes a provision that you can enter a contractual relationship in a tenancy. Either that relationship has to be written, or it has to be implied from the conduct of the parties. But it introduced something interesting, that actually a tenancy relationship can arise where there's a data message, a data communication. If I wrote on WhatsApp that you know, I want to take over your house, but you did not give me an agreement, and I went on to take on the house, it is presumed that a relationship is established. So we can have a tenant-landlord relationship even through WhatsApp. Exactly, because electronic messages are now admissible before courts as evidence, including WhatsApp message. Yes, you can go and extract it, and it will be evidence before the courts. But also, secondly, the law also said, if you are having a tenancy of more than 25 currency points, this is about 500,000 shillings, that tenancy has to be in writing for you to enforce it. So ekitegeeza nti omuntu singa oba obadde omupangisa ennyumba naye ng'asasula emitwalo 5 okudda waggulu, olina okukiteeka mu buwandiike, so that you're able, if you go to court to enforce it, you're able to enforce it. Or if it is not written, then the opposite party, who is now the tenant, has to acknowledge that there was a tenancy. So I think on the side of the landlord, it is fair to him to have such a contract written down in the circumstances. Where you are paying rent that is above 500,000. Yes, above 500,000. And when you pay that rent, you are supposed to be given a receipt. But also, the law says for tenants in cities, municipalities, you are supposed to pay through the bank. Why? Because there is something called rental income tax. Rental income tax is charged from your rental income for the whole year. And I think government gives a threshold of 2,820,000. So
So let's imagine that in a year, you're earning 5 million shillings from your building, your commercial building or residential building, but which is rented, and you're getting income out of it. You're supposed to pay tax to URA. Now, government gives you a threshold of 2,820,000. So if it is 5 million, you subtract the 2,820,000 from the 5 million. They imagine that you made some expenses, so that is why they give you a threshold to be withdrawn.
Okay, let's go back to Justice Sekana and what he said. According to Sekana, if at all you don't have, if at all the premises are closed and you are not paying rent, the landlord has the right to break into your house. At what point should the landlord get to just break into someone's it is now the end of the month, you haven't paid rent, the landlord has the right, if you're at work, now I'm Genesis, I'm here at work, the landlord can just go break into my house and pick one.
Now, under section 29 of this act, section 29(2 particularly, says a landlord has a right to re-enter his property if a default happens consecutively within 30 days.
Consecutively within 30 days?
Within 30 days from the date from which the payment arises, from the date from which the rent payment arises, 30 days after. So after 30 days, he is free to come and enter his property using any means.
I kindly request that you say that in Luganda again.
Landlord alina obuyinza singa ennaku 30 ziweddeko nga tosasudde rent gwe wali olina okusasula, alina tugambe beetu okuyingira ekizimbe oba ennyumba yo n'akola kyonna kyayagala okukola okweddiza ennyumba ye. Okiraba? Kyekisookera ddala. Ekyokubiri, ekyo kirina okukolebwa nga waliwo LC 1 ne wabeerawo ne poliisi si yekka nga ye nga landlord. Because I had the same matter of course there was a case where this person entered property through an agreement and he was paying rent and he stopped paying rent, and he was actually a senior person in the army. But this was a church property somewhere. So we intervened and the church had actually forcefully entered into the property and taken over the property by force and got all his things, pushed them out. They were not interested in any discussion.
All the things that he had.
Yes, why? Because the landlord had made a reminder over and over. So it is good practice within this law that you give notice, written notice, as a landlord, and say you have failed to pay the rent and I'm going to enter the property and I'm either going to close the property. You are not allowed to sell though the things that you get in the house. You must have a court order for you to be able to sell the things that you've found in the house.
So if the 30 days elapse from the day I'm supposed to pay rent, and the landlord probably breaks into my house, the LC should be there.
The police and the LC. The law is very clear.
But the things via JM, until he has a court order,
exactly, until he has a court order. Why? Because legally you don't have powers to sell what is not yours. It doesn't mean that if the other person is in default, now the property by reason of default has actually become your property. So that's not right. But also the landlord under section 29(3) can still go to court, and even when he has entered your building, he can still go to court and claim for rent in arrears. So that is the protection that is granted to the landlord. Why does this happen? Because those years, even today, someone will know that you're demanding them 3 months and they will lock the door of the house and they will run to the village. So the landlords were restricted. You couldn't enter the house because that would be trespass. So I think the law...
You're not getting paid.
Yes, you're not getting paid. and you're probably supposed to maintain this structure. So I think what the law was doing is to provide that space so that a landlord has a right to enter the property in those instances, so that he can take ownership, but also take actions of recovering his money. Yes.
Okay, let's talk about salary, not salary, sorry about that. Let's talk about rent increment, which is also now a challenge.
Yes.
Nti oyingiro mwaka at the beginning of the year, the landlord, you're paying 300,000. Mugendo took up 8 months down the road, the landlord is saying, okay, okutandiko mwezi ogwo gujja, mugenda kuba msasula mitwalo 4. And people actually don't know how this is supposed to work.
Section 26 of this Landlord and Tenant Act 2022 provides for instances where you can increase rent. First of all, you're not allowed to increase rent more than 10% of the entire rental cost in that year. So you're not tosobola kuongeza rent wo okuyisa ebitundu 10 ku buli 100 mu mwaka gumu. So ekitegeeza nti rent woba ogenda kumuongeza tolina kuyisa 10%. For example, singa mbadde nsasula emitwalo 5 omwezi, wemba nyongeza rent omwaka ogwo, katugambe omwaka guno ngenda kuongeza rent, sirina kuongeza rent kuyisa 10%. Okiraba? So ekitegeeza 10% of 500,000 is how much?
Probably you pay 600 oyinza okwongerako emitwalo 10.
Yes, emitwalo nga 10 around there. Yeah, so that is it. So you cannot the law restricts you from excessively adding rent because it does not, the law is trying to protect the person who is in this house, the tenant, you know, from being exploited financially.
But is that
ebiseera biri landlord nga wakulaba waguze enyama ewuwo oba waguze emotoka n'ayongeza ki n'agamba kati nyongeza rent. So they keep on doubling this rent depending on circumstances.
Actually, if at all wobo sasula mitwalo 5 500,000 and your landlord wants to increase rent by 10%, agenda kuongerako mitwalo 5.
Yes, mitwalo 5. That is yes, that is 10%.
But that means buli mwaka landlord asobola osalawo ku increasing anko 10% ku premises ze.
Now omulundi gumu mu mwaka. Yes, once in a year. Yes, once in a year he can there is no, the law doesn't specify that he's not allowed to increase every year. Yeah, but before you do that, olina okuwa omuntu notice that you're going to increase the rent, and this is supposed to be 60 days notice. I think those are 2 months.
2 months,
yes. So 2 months, olina omuwa notice for 2 months nti ogenda kuongeza ki rent. N'olyoka ozongeza ate nga toyisiza ki 10%.
Kati mu 2 months seasonal, if at all the landlord is saying Genesis we are in Jan, in March I'm going to increase the rent. This period of time jampadde, what if I am not willing to work with his increment? In these 2 months of me having to move out, should I be paying rent?
The law, first of all, of course the rent will not increase unless the 2 months have lapsed. That is one. Number two, the law gives you a leeway to negotiate with the landlord in respect to that increment. So, but if you don't negotiate, there's a presumption that you've actually accepted the increment. So you are supposed to negotiate.
If you stay quiet,
yes. So if you stay quiet, we assume you've accepted the increment. So you have a right to negotiate. So that does away with dictatorship from the landlords, that they just come and then increase. Actually, they haven't supposed to state the reason why they're actually increasing the rent.
Renovations. Renovations. Actually, let's first leave the renovations. Let's talk about water security.
Before we speak about that, there are instances where there's a fixed agreement that you're not going to increase rent for this period of time.
Why?
Yes, so where there is a fixed agreement, you're supposed to respect that agreement. Nti singa muba mwakola agreement nti rent tetugenda kujongeza oluvanyuma lwa myaka 3. Emyaka 3 wejiba teginaggwako tokkirizibwa kukola ki kwongera rent mu mateeka. Era oli asobola ogenda mu kooti n'akuchallenginga nga wayongezaayo ki rent. Mpozi n'ekirala kwe kucharginga rent mu dollars.
So kulindeko nga tunagenda kucha dollars, that's another thing. Ogambye nti emyezi gino you have an agreement with the landlord nti emyezi gino nga teginaggwako toyongeza rent.
Yes, singa mba mwakola agreement. Yes.
Kati agreement eyo ogikola temunayingira nyumba.
Agreement esobola okukolebwa ekiseera kyonna. Esobola okukolebwa nga tonayingira nyumba oba esobola okukolebwa nga already oli mu nyumba, you were continuing tenant in the property. Yes, so the agreement can be made at any time.
Okay, now
yes.
Let's go to
and I've seen those kind of agreements, especially banks. When they are renting your property, they can have such a clause. Sometimes ne contracts zino mpozi chenina okugamba nti singa mulina tenancy agreement, kooti we muba mugenze mu kooti egenda kutunulira tenancy agreement yammwe, tegenda kutunulira nnyo ku mateeka. Etunulira agreement gye mwakoze yensonga kulwaki kibeera kirungi n'ofunayo cancel n'alaba agreement eyo,
especially wobanga nyumba yo eri above 500,000.
Exactly. Naye obuzibu obusinga abantu batya ba lawyer, batya ba cancel, naye kyandibadde kirungi obeereko ne lawyer wo gwe weebuuza tulina n'aba legal aid, abakola legal aid nga baliwo okugaba obuyambi obw'obwerere mu mateeka, osobola okugendayo ne weebuuza ku Law Society oba Uganda Christian Lawyers, justice centers, Muslim centers for law and justice, they all offer these services freely. So osobola okugendayo ne weebuuzaako.
Ebintu bino byetwogera council, they don't work for just people abali mu domestic rentals. Bo twogera ne kubali mu business rentals.
Exactly.
It works for both.
Exactly. As long as you are renting premises, the law binds you.
Okay, now let's go to the dollars that you were talking about, paying in dollars.
Yes, so paying in dollars, there's a restriction because we don't want to cause inflation in the country. Initially, landlords were charging, especially those in Kampala city, in the city center, they were charging rent in dollars. And what happened is that this law said the currency for trading in Uganda is our Ugandan currency, the UGX currency. Yes, that is our legal tender. Yeah, so you are not allowed to actually charge in dollars. But I've seen landlords doing it. So I think this law has to be enforced. Yes, it has to be enforced. And you can actually challenge the landlord for charging you money in dollars. Yes, they can be challenged.
This charging money in dollars has really not been enforced. Kubanga wetwogera tulina Airbnbs mu ggwanga. Airbnb has become a popular business now, but still people are paying in dollars.
Yes.
Personally, buli Airbnb jendaba osasula ekubala mu dollars. So that has definitely not been enforced. So simanyo beteke eryo anti ogambe we test the law. And as far as that particular clause, no, it has not been enforced at all.
Yeah, so as this law was just passed in 2022, it's not even 2 years yet, I think. And it's a process. It's one thing to have a law, but it is another thing for that law to actually be implemented. So it's a process. It could be a slow process, but I think we shall get there with time, especially as people go to courts to enforce this particular law. I think we shall get there.
I really hope so, because that law is biting, and not just with landlords, with tenants, but also in businesses. That also in businesses is kwatagana ne accommodations. It is biting in all ways. So as we come back, I want us to talk about the security. Security. When you're going to pay rent, I'm sure you have noticed very many times the landlord tells you, if I want 3 months from you as deposits, but also I want a security month that is extra. I want the council to break it down for us when we come back on exactly how the security month operates under the law.
Focus. Focus on healthy morning. Bethany TV for health.
Child health and well-being, the foundation for a bright and promising future. Join us for exciting episodes aimed at optimizing our children's physical, mental, and emotional health with our team of experts, including pediatricians, nutritionists, and child psychologists, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on Bethany TV.
Bethany TV for health. Exciting news for all viewers of Bethany TV. Bethany TV, the premier health TV channel in Uganda and Africa, and also your favorite TV station, is now on Star Times. You can now watch Bethany TV day and night, weekdays and weekends on Star Times, channel 271. Catch your favorite programs on health, wellness, entertainment, and so much more. Bethany TV is also available on free-to-air, GoTV, YoTV, Airtel TV, and Afro mobile apps. Not forgetting online via our website www.bethanytv.ug and social media platforms at Bethany TV UG. Bethany TV for health. Showing on Bethany TV. Have you gone through a dire health situation where people imagined you could never come back from? Or do you know of any person who overcame a life-draining situation? Inspirational stories, motivational journeys, predicament after predicament. Winnie Babazi dives deep into their roller coaster experiences, but most importantly, how they overcame. Don't miss Be Hopeful, featuring medical experts' advisory on every experience shared.
Your story can inspire, encourage, and give hope.
Mondays and Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Bethany TV for health. Showing on Bethany TV. Fertilization is never complete until the two haploid nuclei come together, combine their chromosomes into a single diploid nucleus. When the two chromosomes meet, they form a tiny living being that is a zygote that entirely depends on its provider for survival, and that is the mother.
Yes, I've been to the theater 5 times, and all of them have been different.
Welcome to this exciting, informative, and mind-blowing show, The Journey to Motherhood, with Teacher Zita every Saturday, 9 p.m., only on Bethany TV for health. Showing on Bethany TV. Are you looking for a platform to advertise your business and boost your sales? Bethany TV got you covered. Take advantage of our introductory rates and maximize your leverage for brand awareness, advertising, product launching, live coverages, activations, and so much more. For booking and more information, contact our sales team on 0785 576 269. Bethany TV for health. Bethany TV for health. Focus. Focus on healthy morning. Focus. Focus on healthy morning.
Welcome back. If you happen to just have joined the show, we are looking at the Landlord Tenant Act of Uganda 2022, and in case you have something that you would love to know about, or maybe something that you would love to ask, go on our social media platforms. We're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube as well, but you can also get us on our X platform. Post and send us, let us know what the question, let us know what you would love to know about your understanding of the relationship between you as a tenant or you as a landlord and your tenant, and vice versa. But Council, I want us to talk about the security month. Enaku zino, we pay a security month as we get into the house. What rotates around this security month by law? What are we doing right and doing wrong?
Now, first and foremost, in a tenancy, there are responsibilities on both parties. There are responsibilities on the side of the tenant, and there are responsibilities on the side of the landlord. Now, there are certain things that happen in a tenancy as a result of negligence of the tenant. And sometimes, because you are in a tenancy, you cannot avoid some of these things. But there's also something called normal wear and tear. Now, this security deposit is allowed within the law. But it is always it's supposed to be a 1 month, an equivalent to a 1 month's pay of your rent. And you pay this once when you enter the house, or when you enter a tenancy agreement with the landlord. So it's supposed to be once. Why is this paid? This is like a security to your roles in the tenancy, certain responsibilities that you're supposed to perform in the tenancy. It's like it's granting you it is granting the landlord a protection of his building, issues that may arise as a result of negligence
during your stay.
Yes, because sometimes we see someone has actually occupied the house, and they are leaving the house, but the house is in a very bad state that the house cannot be habitable, because the law says that as you're leaving the house, or you're leaving your tenancy, you're supposed to leave it in a habitable condition, but also in the condition that you actually found that structure. So because of this, people used to live at night. They would just run away. You only remember the fellow has gone, but you are having renovations to do in the building, and most of this was actually caused by the tenant in the building. So that's why the law came up with this security deposit, which is supposed to be paid by every tenant who is occupying a residential or a rented commercial building.
So what happens? You said you are supposed to keep the home in the condition.
Yes.
Now let's say I've been in the house, I paid my security month of 600,000. I've been in the house for probably 2 years. As I'm leaving the house, I make sure that the house is looking as organized and clean as I met it. I've been an organized person. Now,
if that happens, the house is in a good condition, maybe the house has experienced some normal wear and tear as a result of occupancy.
Yeah.
Ideally, the landlord is supposed to refund you back that money, to pay it back to you. I don't know how practical it is. I really don't know if this is actually practical. A landlord giving you back money, I don't know whether this is actually practical.
Did the law think about that? How practical and impractical that is?
What the law does, it sets obligations on parties. And I think that is what they were trying to do. That if you used, for example, Bethany Television is using this property, and when they are leaving this property, the property is actually habitable to the next people that will actually come to occupy. The landlord here is supposed to refund back 1 month's security to the tenant. Why? Because the property was actually used in a good manner, and there was no damage, substantial damage caused to the property. Yes.
I really think the law should really break the issue of security down really well. I feel like that security deposit is still causing a lot of chaos between the landlord and the tenant, especially wabanga nyumba tenant agenda jifuluma ajirese mu conditions ennungi. Do you know sometimes you live in a house, Na landlord nakuwa, maybe the landlord is so frustrating, maybe you're managing to deal with them, so you just want to get out of the house. And you're getting out of this gentleman's or lady's house, you have left it in very good condition, atenga tayagala kuddiza security man. Ng'ate n'ebbanga ly'omaze mu nnyumba tobadde na mirembe.
Yes, kibeerawo era ndowooza nti nakyo kooti ejja kukitestinga with time okulaba how practical it is. Nti landlord singa omuwadde sente za security ng'oyingidde ennyumba asobola ozikuddiza nga ennyumba yo givuddemu nga buli kimu okirese nga bwe kyali oba buli kimu okirese kirungi. Yeah, so maybe in the Luganda sense is that nti singa obadde oyingira ennyumba landlord kimukakatako okukuggyako ssente ez'omwezi gumu nga akasente ako kamuyamba nti singa wabeerawo ekintu kyonna ekiba kikyuse ku kizimbe nga kiva mu kubeerawo okwo mu kizimbe ekyo then landlord asobola okukozesa akasente ako kewamusasula extra okulaba nti atereeza ekizimbe kye ne kiba nti omuntu addako asobola okuyingira ekizimbe ekyo kye tuyita security deposit mu mateeka.
Ate nga sigirinaako buzibu because I've seen very many times tenants occupy homes nagenda ogifuluma nga the house is dirty, the house is scratched east west, abaana bawandika ku walls zonna zijjudde
nga system yonna yafa, system y'amazzi bagita, system bulbs zonna zavaamu, buli kimu kyafa, sockets ezikyakola babijjamu. Yes, so the law really wants to protect the tenant, but I mean to protect himself. But also the other thing is when you occupy a building, for example this building,
yes,
and you are going to do fundamental changes in the structure, like how the studio here is, those who are not here, it is actually a studio. It is transformed into a studio. You are supposed, before you do this, if you're going to change the structure of the building, you're supposed to get the consent of the landlord before you do that. And actually, before you leave, you're supposed to make changes
back,
as in before, as the building was when you occupied it.
You know, I asked that to my landlord when I was getting into his house. Nemugamba, I want to change the color of the house.
Of the house.
Like,
women have issues with colors of buildings.
Like, Genesis, do you really have to? I'm like, I would really love to change the color. He's like, but it's going to be costly. I'm like, but it's my cost. So he's like, okay, but if you're changing the color, that's okay. But I need you to know that as you get, if you choose to one day wake up and you want to leave the premises, then I may need you to change back into the color.
True. Yes, true. So if you adjust, you are supposed to return it back
to how it was.
Yes, but also you do all that with the consent of the landlord. Now there are instances where you want to make a change in the structure, or there is a problem with the house. Maybe there is a linkage of water, but the landlord does not have money to act on those changes immediately. The law allows you to give him a notice of 14 days to go and make changes that you want on the structure. Maybe there's a problem with the power socket, or and it is not you who actually caused it. Or there is maybe there's a problem with water, the water system in the house. The law allows you to give him notice 14 days. If he does not act on your notice, you go on
and do it.
And do it
at your cost.
At your cost. And then it is deducted from your rental costs in a month. So what is important is that you give notice that there are certain things that need to be done in this house, and we are requesting you because it is the obligation of the landlord to make sure the house is habitable. Yeah, so what happens, you write to the landlord, and then if the landlord responds and says, but I don't have money, you tell the landlord ordinarily that I'm going to do the changes, but you're going to deduct this from the rental salary or spread it within the year.
Yeah.
Because there are instances where you enter a building and there are many things that need to be done, and the landlord does not have money.
You've talked about the renovations. Into the bulbs are dead, the pipes are not working, the toilet sink is not working, it is too old, it's broken, you can't change it, you don't have the money, you deduct, you work with it. What about in issues, a landlord, nyumba yo temuli sink mu bathroom, mu nyumba yo temulina wenteka ka towel mu bathroom yo, temulina wenteka soap. I'm supposed to buy all those things now, to fix them.
The question is, if it is just where to put soap, does that stop you from habiting the house or living in the house?
It makes me uncomfortable.
Well, so that there are certain things for your comfort. But there are certain things for general usage of the house.
So it only caters for general usage.
Bigenda kola ku comfort yo era gwogenda okubisasulira
kyogamba wenteka ebintu byange nafuluma nayo sink gye nkuteredde mu bathroom njafuluma
sink is a major, that is a major repair in the house. That one is the responsibility of the landlord.
Let's leave the fact that it is not there. Okay, yes. Let's leave the fact that it's there and it's broken. Let's talk about the fact that maybe it's not there. Nti gwe mu bathroom yo wera biroteka mu
kakati mu nyumba waliwo ebintu nga landlord yalina okubikola era alina okubiteekamu. Then waliwo ebintu gwe byoyagala nga bya convenience yo naye nga tebiri important era nga landlord tasobola kubikola. So ebyo byo olina okumutegeeza nti waliwo byoyagala era ogenda kubiteekamu. Muyinza okukkaanya out of agreement kino kyetaagisibwa oba tekyetaagisibwa. Yes, mutual understanding. Naye kiba kirungi nti singa wabeerawo ekintu kyonna kyoyagala okukola oteekwa buteesi ku informinga landlord n'olyoka obikola n'obiteekamu so that musobola okutuula ne mu computinga nti kino kigwa mu essential. You know, in law there is something we call warranties and conditions. You know, a condition has to be met by all means ochiraba before a contract takes place. So there are certain things in the house that you actually need for ordinary usage, and there are those things that you really can do without. Yes, and that is not the responsibility of the landlord.
We even run out of time. We have issues of good. I have a lot I wanted to ask you. Let's talk about the security lights. Twina security lights. We have, let's say, we also have personal water meters, but then we also have this waliyo amazigan agabera ku compound. It maybe gatekeeper gakolechi gakozesa and so on and so forth. Who is responsible for those external costs?
Now the external costs are supposed to be taken care by the landlord because there is what we call common usage. There are certain things, maybe you're staying in a house and there are more houses inside one fence. You have houses, maybe 3 houses, and there's a compound outside and probably there's a small garden, or you know, there are things that you use commonly. So those things are supposed to be paid for by the landlord. But sometimes the tenants can agree on sometimes not to stress the landlord so much and they actually take care of some of these costs.
You know the problem with that external cost, especially amazaga gebweru, and sometimes renovations are done, maybe balikutereza gate or balikutereza whatever, I don't know, the building and so on and so forth, and that water is counted on the bill of the tenants. Nenga jukira ali mutereza at the end of the day tunula kale nyumba na yeye nange wemberera. I want to
it's not right to do that because okulongosa gwabadde alongosa ekizimbe oba gwabadde akola changes mu kizimbe, so gwalina okukabalinga those extra costs. Tugambe nti maybe they are welding, bakola welding, batereza nyumba, bakola welding, ezo zonna costs ezo ez'amasanyalaze, ez'amazzi ge bakozesezza gali extra, ezo zonna zirina okugwa ku landlord. Ndowooza kyandibadde kirungi singa obeera ne mita ez'amasanyalaze ne mita y'amazzi, kyandibadde kirungi ndowooza landlord naye n'abeera ne mita ye ng'eri independent n'abeera ne mita y'amazzi ne mita y'amasannyalaze nga gali nga kiri independent ng'asobola okukozesa singa waba waliwo ekirina okukolebwa.
Okay, now council, we also have situations where let's say the landlord is selling off the premises. Ekizimba ali mu kizimba oba the premises azikoye wali amuwamu ssente ayagala kukola ki, and the person that is buying the building or whatever it is that you are renting probably wants to make renovations or wants to entirely change everything about it. So they need oba ayagala muveemu nga mutabagala probably nga mubabateka mu ssente ntono ayagala kola renovations ze and people get in with new charges zabawa. Now mulino fuluma nga mubadde muli temuli ready, you're paying rent well, you were not ready to shift at all.
This is supposed to be a continuing tenancy. It's supposed to be a continuing even in employment. If the company changes, today you had company A, then tomorrow company B buys off company A, and their staff, there is presumed to be continuous employment. So even here, there is supposed to be a continuous tenancy until the terms of the tenancy have actually come to an end. The years of the tenancy have actually come to an end. That's when that new buyer can actually go on to make changes to the structure, or if he's going to do that, then he's supposed to get your permission, your consent. He's not supposed to just come and say, now we are going to do changes, now you have to leave. No. The law provides the time through which you're supposed to communicate for you to make changes on the structure. You're supposed to give a notice. Actually, you're supposed to give a 14 days notice if you're going to make changes on the structure.
What about evictions?
There's something I forgot. There are instances where the landlord wants to enter the structure. Maybe there's a problem with the sewage, and the landlord wants to come into your house. The landlord, yes, into your premises. The landlord is not supposed to enter your house without a notice of at least 24 hours.
Okay.
Yes, so they are not allowed to come and just because it is his house, he thinks he's free to just come
walk in whenever he wants
and then because he will be violating your privacy, and it's very important.
Yeah, but there's something you didn't get me right, Council. On the issue of evictions when the tenant is not ready, not just renovations. I'm selling off these premises, but the person that is buying them wants to turn it into a hotel. So you are supposed to be evicted when you are not ready. How does that work?
Now, that's why I said that you are supposed to give a notice. And the law is clear. If it is a tenancy of a weekly tenancy, you give 7 days notice.
If it's a weekly tenancy?
Yes, for people to vacate. If it is a monthly tenancy, you give a 1 month's notice for people to be able to vacate. If it is a tenancy that is continuous year after year, you give a 6 months notice before someone can actually leave the structure. So why is this important? It's important because the tenant has to prepare themselves to actually leave the building.
But then Saba Council akukaddemu mu Luganda.
Tugambye nti singa wabeerawo ekizibu ku kizimbe oba landlord atunze ekizimbe nga onaguze ekizimbe, landlord omupya ayagala kukyusa ekizimbe oba ayagala okuleetamu abapangisa abapya mu kizimbe, etteeka limusaba nti singa mubeera mu tenancy ng'ebadde ya wiiki emu, alina okuwa notice eyewiiki emu nti tugenda kusaba ove mu kizimbe.
Obanga obadde osasulanga mu wiiki.
Yes, mu wiiki. Yes, alina okuwa notice ya wiiki emu nti olina okuva mu kizimbe. Singa tenancy oba wobadde obeera obadde osasula mwezi, alina okuwa era ng'obaddemu less than 1 year, era alina okuwa notice eya omwezi gumu. Singa oba obadde mu kizimbe okumala omwaka gumu n'emyaka egiddako mu maaso 5 oba alina okuwa notice oba alina okutegeeza mu nnaku ezitaka wansi wa myezi 6. Yes.
Yes. So ekitegeeza landlord wobanga nyumba ayagala gitunda nga mulino gifuluma wobanga obadde osasula week kitegeeza agenda kuwa week notice obadde osasula mu mwezi ate ng'ekizimbo kibaddemu oba premises ozibaddemu wansi w'omwaka.
Yes.
Ng'obadde osasula mwezi buli mwezi alina okuwa notice y'omwaka gumu y'omwezi gumu.
Yes.
Wobanga ekizimbo ekibaddemu oba premises oba akayumbako kabaddemu ng'osussizza ku mwaka
alina okuwa emyezi 6. Yes. N'akuwa notice.
Yes.
Myezi 6 nti ssebo oba nnyabo oluvannyuma olw'emyezi 6 ekizimbe tugenda kubanga tukitwala era olina okuvaamu mu kizimbe. So
ne waba kukoye bukoyi alina okuwa notice eyo.
Of course wateekwa okubeerawo ensonga. Ayinza obutakugamba nti yakoye naye wateekwa okubeerawo ensonga n'akugamba nti nyabo tubadde tukusaba ove mu kizimbe. Abamu babeera mu bizimbe naye nga bayomba baleekaana. Landlord n'abakoowa.
We're running out of time, but I'm going to ask you one question as we close down, Council Osapiri. According to how you look at this law, you are more knowledgeable about the law than I could be. Do you think it is protecting and as well as solving the issues between the tenant and the landlord? Is it meeting the points that it should meet?
Now, comprehensively, before you make a law, you are supposed to consult. You consult all parties, okay? You consult the tenants, you consult the landlords, you consult policymakers, you consult advocates for, you know, the CSOs and so on.
Yes.
So yes, we think that this law represents the opinions of the tenants and represents the opinions of the landlords, because Parliament comprehensively consulted. Before you pass a law, the process is very long. You are supposed to call stakeholders for meetings. They are supposed to give you their opinion. You are supposed to go before a committee of Parliament, present your opinion before a committee of Parliament. The committee of Parliament is supposed to take that opinion back to the House. The House is supposed to debate
on it.
Yes, and the House has to consult with the electorates. So before you pass a law, it undergoes such a very thorough process. So yes, I think that, and by the time the president assents to a law, then he has also consulted. So you can see the process. Yeah. So there are laws that have stayed in the confines of Parliament without Parliament actually passing them. Why? Because the consultations, there's a problem somewhere. And so they have to reach an agreement with all parties.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Maybe you should say your last remarks to the viewers as we close down.
Now that we are talking about this tenancy, landlord and tenant act, it is important that if you want someone to enter your property, if you are, you know, the agreement is for 500,000, more than 500,000, you put it in writing. But also seek legal counsel. Agreement temuzeekolera ndaba abalala agenda ku LC mbu agendeyo mbu bakole agreement. No. Mufuneyo lawyer, mufuneyo omuntu eyasoma amateeka abakolereka agreement so that temufuna buzibu. Nkola n'ekitongole ekya Inter-Religious Council of Uganda mutukyalireko Emmengo ku Senteba Road. Tubeerawo buli lunaku, osobola okujja ku counseling, osobola okuvisitinga legal department yaffe ne tukuwa ku magezi mu bintu ebyenjawulo. Osobola n'okukyalawo obukyazi n'olabako ku basumba ababeerawo ne baseeka ababeerawo.
Okay, Twayanziza nnyo Council. We have come to the end of the show. I'm glad you've been part of it all the way from 6 to now 9 a.m. and in a few minutes, of course, we'll be having more amazing programs here at Bethany TV. I'm Genesis Namale. See you again tomorrow.
Focus on healthy morning.